But the problem is, if they ask the price question too early in the sales conversation, before you've displayed the value that your venue can actually give to them, the price is always going to be expensive, no matter what it is. Já viu rico namorar pobre? What's up everybody, Daniel here. Today I'm going to be talking about 3 very common objections that a salesperson could face when they're trying to sell private function or private event bookings for a venue. So us as a business, we work with a lot of different venues around the world, helping them drive more private functions. So we help them with marketing to generate more leads, but we also help the sales team who deals with those leads to help them close more deals from the lead flow that they have. This is an interesting subject because many of the salespeople we work with, they run into objections. So an objection is essentially where you're having a sales conversation with a prospect. Maybe they're telling you about a birthday party that they're planning and they want to have 100 people there. They want to have some money on the bar. They want to set up a little DJ stage and they want to have some balloons. And you're having a sales conversation with this prospect and you want them to book with you. You want them to host their event within your space. These events can range normally anywhere from about $2,000 spend up to about $6,000 spend. So they're quite what we would call high ticket sales. And what can often happen is these sales conversations can go in different directions. And these are 3 common objections that a salesperson can run into when they're talking to a prospect. And what could happen is you start the sales conversation and right away as the sales conversation starts, the prospect says, well, how much is it? You know, what is your prices? And that is a very fair question for the prospect to ask. But the problem is if they ask the price question too early in the sales conversation before you've displayed the value that your venue can actually give to them, the price is always going to be expensive, no matter what it is. For example, let's say I walk into a car dealership and I say, hey, how much is the car? The first question they're probably going to say is, well, what are you looking for? What car would you like? And then I'll tell them some of the prerequisites of things I want. I want it to be red. I want it to have 6 doors. I want it to have 300 horsepower, whatever it is. And then I'll tell the car salesperson, and then they can give me some different options. Then we can talk about prices once I'm looking at things that meet my prerequisites. In the same scenario, when somebody comes to the salesperson and asks, hey, how much is your function space? Without giving them the packages or the exact details about what it is we can actually do, and the only way we can do that is by asking strategic questions. Price is not really a conversation that we can have yet because we don't actually understand what the prospect is looking for. So the best way to overcome is say, look, I understand you want to know the price and I want to give you the best prices possible for exactly what you're looking for. If I could ask a couple of quick questions about the event that you're planning, then I'll be able to give you some rough indicators of what the prices could be for that event. And then we can go over some different options to play with the numbers to best suit your scenario or your budget. So you reframe it and then you move into asking questions. Because without understanding exactly what the prospect wants, most likely the prices you give are going to feel too expensive or too high. So we need to ask questions, build up the value with context to the person that we're talking with, and then we can give them pricing, which is going to seem very small compared to the value that our business delivers them. Second common objection that a salesperson can run into when they're talking to a prospect is their event date being too far away. So for example, let's say it is February and I say, hey, I'm planning an event for August. And that might be, that's quite a distance out. I'm like, okay, well, so you're planning your event quite far away. And the reason why this is an objection is because if the date is very close, the urgency in the prospect's mind is much higher to make a decision. But if their date is far away, they can still be just shopping around, just looking, which is fine. However, as a salesperson, you're probably not going to close a deal unless your space is phenomenal and the value you deliver is far in excess of the prices at which you charge. meaning that people want to work with you and they want the results that you deliver. Hence, they'll probably make a decision quicker just based off who you are. But what you can say is, if someone is planning an event too far into the future, let's say, you can start to implement a sense of urgency. So for example, you could say, wow, okay, so you're looking at August. Let me just have a look at our availability for August. And you can look at your availability and say, wow, August is an extremely busy month for us. Just because we're coming into our busy season, there tends to be quite a lot of people planning birthday parties around August. So what date is it that you're looking for? They'll tell you the date that they're looking for. Then you could say, oh, that date actually is available. However, the week before and the 2 weeks after are actually booked up. So we don't have much availability there. However, we do operate on a first in, first served basis. So whoever secures the date by paying a deposit gets their date reserved. So that's how we operate. And by adding a little bit of scarcity in terms of them might potentially missing out on that date, you can use scarcity to close more deals by saying, hey, that date is available, but most likely not for very long. You could also say something like, hey, we've got a couple other interested parties who are interested in that date, and we do operate off a first in, first served basis. So then you could continue with the sales conversation if you're doing an appointment or a tour of the space, and then you could go for the close after that, once you've built up scarcity and urgency in the mind of the prospect. The third common objection that salespeople can face is probably one of the most common, and it's where somebody who you're having a sales conversation with casts their power away. So they'll say, yeah, sorry, I have to talk to my husband, or I have to talk to my wife. Very, very common. People cast their decision-making power away from them because they don't then feel the accountability for having to make a decision with you on the sales conversation that they're having. So the way that you can overcome this, you can say, cool, no problem. The way that we operate in this scenario, Sally, is we tentatively reserve your date. So what I'll do is I'll put a little asterisk next to this date and I'm going to write your name down, and you have 72 hours to sort of digest what we've talked about today. That gives you enough time to have a talk to your husband, and with other people that are interested in that date, I'll push them away, let them know that you've tentatively reserved that date for the next 72 hours. And then how about let's touch base maybe tomorrow evening, Sally, via a phone call, once you've had a chance to talk to your husband, and then we can reconnect from there. Do you reckon you'll be able to speak to your husband maybe tonight or tomorrow sometime? And once you give context to a 72-hour window, it's then unreasonable for Sally to say, hey, yeah, sorry, I can't talk to my husband, I'm too busy. What you can also say is, hey, Sally, do you reckon it's reasonable that you can maybe give your husband a call, or maybe have a chat to him tonight if you were to see him? Because you've now given her two options to be able to speak to her husband. So she can't then push back on you and say, oh, sorry, my husband's out of town, I can't see him. Because you say, oh, cool, we'll just give him a call then, right? So you can tentatively reserve the date, and what that does is it allows you as the salesperson to hold frame, meaning you own the next step in the sales conversation, which is going to be a follow-up call 24 hours from the time in which you're talking to Sally, which will be today. And then there's the psychological tentative timeline, which is 72 hours total. So you have a 24-hour follow-up and a 72-hour band of a decision to be made. That gives you a little bit more frame and a little bit more structure to the sales conversations that you have, and allows you to ultimately work more leads, because it is not viable for you to have so many people who say, hey, I have to talk to my husband, I'm really interested, but let me get back to you when I'm ready. You can't, as a salesperson, have that. You always have to control the next step. Otherwise, with very high lead volume, things blow up and a lot of stuff falls through the cracks. You make less money, you close less deals. So tentatively closing is going to be very important. So there are three common roadblocks or objections that we see function salespeople run into, and these are some ways that you as a salesperson could potentially overcome them. So I hope that made sense to somebody out there. If you got any questions regarding sales or regarding marketing for hospitality or private function spaces, just leave a comment below. Do our best to answer those for you. Also, if you haven't already, we'd love you to subscribe if you like this style of content for maybe yourself or anyone else in your team. Yeah, thanks for your time, and we'll see you in the next one.